The ultimatum. The arrival ambassador David Morrison stepped through the docking port and into a world that still filled him with wonder, even after 3 years of service. The Galactic Assembly Station hung in the void between stars, a massive structure built from materials that seemed to shift between solid and liquid states. It was ancient beyond human comprehension, constructed by civilizations that had mastered space travel when Earth's ancestors were still learning to use fire. Morrison adjusted his formal diplomatic attire and walked toward the main corridor. His escort, a being called Nexar from the Quilith species, waited with patient stillness. The Quilith resembled tall, slender figures made of what looked like flowing silver water, constantly moving yet always maintaining their shape. Ambassador Morrison, Nexar spoke through the translation device that all visitors received. The tribunal awaits your presence. They have called this emergency session specifically to address the matter of humanity. Morrison felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. Emergency sessions were rare. In the 3 years since humanity had been granted observer status in the galactic community, they had never called one for human affairs. Something was very wrong. They walked through corridors lined with windows that showed the endless expanse of space. Other species passed them in the halls, beings of every imaginable form. Some walked on multiple legs, others floated through the air, and a few existed as pure energy contained within specialized suits. Each represented civilizations that had existed for thousands, sometimes millions of years. Humanity was the youngest species to ever achieve faster-than-light travel. That distinction had earned them both curiosity and concern from the older races. The Chamber of Judgment, the Tribunal Chamber, was a sphere carved from a single piece of material that humanity's scientists still could not identify. It absorbed all light that touched it, creating an effect of standing in the void of space itself. Platforms floated at various heights, each holding a representative from the 12 elder races that formed the Galactic Tribunal. Morrison took his position at the center platform, which rose from the floor at his approach. Around him, the tribunal members looked down from their elevated positions. Their presence was meant to intimidate, and Morrison had to admit it worked. Supreme Arbiter Kelthon was the first to speak. His species, the Valorians, were massive beings that resembled living stone, their bodies composed of crystalline structures that glowed with internal light. When Kelthon spoke, his voice resonated through the chamber like distant thunder. Ambassador David Morrison of Earth, Kelthon began, his tone formal and heavy with authority. You stand before the Galactic Tribunal, the governing body that has maintained peace and order across 10,000 star systems for over 50,000 years. We have gathered to address a matter of grave concern regarding your species. Morrison kept his expression neutral, though his heart raced. Supreme Arbiter, humanity is honored by your attention. How may we address your concerns? Another tribunal member rose from her platform. She belonged to the Sindari Collective, beings of pure thought that manifested as shifting patterns of light within containment fields. Her voice was melodic, almost hypnotic. Your honor is not what concerns us, Ambassador, she said. It is your ambition. In the mere 30 years since achieving faster-than-light capability, humanity has established colonies on 47 worlds. You have built military installations on each one. Your warship production has increased by 300% in just the last decade. Your technological advancement proceeds at a pace we find deeply troubling. A third member joined the conversation. Commander Threxus of the Corvani Empire was a being covered in armored plates that shifted colors based on his mood. Currently, they displayed deep reds and oranges, indicating aggression and concern. Your species is reckless, Threxus stated bluntly. You experiment with technologies that other races approach with caution built over millennia. You have already developed quantum displacement weapons, artificial intelligence systems, and gravitational manipulation devices. These are tools that younger species should not possess. Morrison took a slow breath before responding. Respected members of the tribunal, humanity's rapid advancement comes from necessity, not aggression. We emerged into a galaxy that we knew nothing about. We built defenses because we understood that the universe could be dangerous. Every colony has protection because we learned early in our history that being unprepared leads to tragedy. Tragedy? Kelthon's voice rumbled with something that might have been amusement. You speak of tragedy as if you understand it. Your species has existed in galactic space for less than a single generation. The tribunal has prevented countless tragedies over 50 millennia. We know what happens when young species are allowed to develop without guidance. The Supreme Arbiter gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed human space in detail. Every colony, every trade route, every military installation highlighted in red. This is not the expansion pattern of a peaceful species. Kelthon continued. This is preparation for conquest. We have seen it before, Ambassador. Young races that believe they are destined to dominate. They grow too quickly, become too powerful, and eventually threaten the stability that we have worked for thousands of generations to maintain. The ultimatum delivered. Morrison felt anger rising in his chest, but forced it down. Losing his temper now would accomplish nothing. Supreme Arbiter, humanity seeks cooperation, not conquest. We build defenses, yes, but we have not attacked any other species. We trade fairly, respect the territories of other civilizations, and follow the guidelines established by this tribunal. For now, said another tribunal member, a being from the Etherian communion, whose form seemed to exist partially in another dimension. But we do not judge species by what they are today. We judge them by what they will become. And humanity's trajectory is clear. Within another century, you will possess the technology and military strength to challenge even the elder races. We cannot allow that. Kelthon raised one massive crystalline hand and the chamber fell silent. Ambassador Morrison, the tribunal has reached a decision. We are issuing the following terms to humanity, and they are not negotiable. The holographic display changed, showing a formal document written in multiple languages, including English. Morrison's heart sank as he read the words. First, Kelthon announced, humanity will immediately cease all colonial expansion. No new settlements will be established without explicit tribunal approval. Second, all human military forces will be reduced to defensive levels appropriate for a developing species. This means dismantling 75% of your current warship fleet and all offensive weapon platforms. Third, humanity will submit all new technological research to tribunal oversight before implementation. Fourth, each human colony will accept an advisor from the tribunal to ensure compliance with galactic law. Morrison stared at the document in disbelief. You're asking us to surrender our sovereignty, to become a protectorate with no control over our own development or defense. We are not asking, Ambassador, Kelthon corrected. We are requiring. This is the price of continued existence within civilized galactic space. These terms have been accepted by every species that has reached your level of development. It is simply the way things work. And if humanity refuses? Morrison asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. The Sindari representative's light patterns shifted to darker hues. Refusal would be most unwise. The tribunal has methods of ensuring compliance. Economic isolation would be the first step. No species under tribunal protection would be permitted to trade with humanity. Your colonies would be cut off from essential resources. Your technology advancement would halt. If isolation proves insufficient, Threxus added with an edge to his voice, more direct measures can be taken. The tribunal maintains enforcement fleets for exactly such situations. We have never needed to use overwhelming force, Ambassador, because no species has been foolish enough to refuse our guidance. Morrison looked around the chamber at the 12 tribunal members. Their expressions, as much as he could read alien features, showed complete certainty. They had done this before, many times. They expected humanity to comply just like all the others. How long do we have to respond? Morrison asked quietly. 30 standard days, Kelthon replied. You will return to Earth, present these terms to your government, and return with their acceptance. This is not a matter for debate or negotiation. It is simply reality. The sooner humanity accepts this, the smoother the transition will be. The journey home. Morrison's transport ship departed from the assembly station 6 hours later. His small diplomatic team gathered in the conference room, their faces showing the same shock and anger he felt. Dr. Sarah Chen, his chief science advisor, was the first to speak. They're not giving us a choice. They're demanding complete submission. They think they can control us like children, added Commander James Wright, Morrison's military liaison. 75% reduction in our fleet. That would leave us defenseless against anyone who decided we were an easy target. Morrison sat in silence for a moment, staring at the stars visible through the viewport. Has anyone in our intelligence division studied the history of other species that went through this process? Chen nodded, pulling up data on her tablet. I requested that information as soon as we left the chamber. The results are disturbing. Every species that accepted tribunal oversight saw their advancement slow dramatically within 50 years. Most become completely dependent on tribunal-approved technology and trade. None have ever achieved true independence again. They become permanent junior members, Wright said bitterly, trapped at a level where they can never threaten the elder races. What about the species that refused? Morrison asked. Chen's expression darkened. There have only been 3 in the tribunal's recorded history. All 3 faced economic blockades followed by internal collapse. The tribunal never had to invade. They just squeezed until the species broke from within. Morrison stood and walked to the viewport. Earth was still 3 days away at their current speed. 3 days to figure out how to tell humanity that they had to choose between chains and destruction. Send a priority message ahead, he said finally. Code level Alpha. Tell them we're bringing home an ultimatum that will change everything. Tell them to convene the United Earth Council immediately. And tell them, he paused, choosing his words carefully. Tell them to have our military analysts ready. We're going to need options. The message reached Earth 24 hours before Morrison's ship arrived. By the time he stepped off the transport at United Earth headquarters in Geneva, the entire planet was buzzing with speculation. Emergency sessions were already underway. Morrison presented the tribunal's ultimatum to the United Earth Council in a closed session. The reaction was immediate and fierce. Representatives from every nation and colony demanded answers, explanations, and solutions. President Elena Martinez of the United Earth government called for order. We have 30 days to respond. Let's use the first day to understand what we're dealing with. Ambassador Morrison, does the tribunal have the power to enforce these terms? Without question, Morrison replied. Their combined military forces dwarf ours by orders of magnitude. Their technology is centuries ahead in most areas. If this becomes a military confrontation, we would be fighting 12 civilizations that have been spacefaring species since before we built the pyramids. Then we have no choice, said one representative. We have to accept. No. The voice came from General Marcus Stone, head of Earth's Space Defense Initiative. He stood from his seat at the back of the chamber. We always have a choice. Martinez gestured for him to continue. Stone walked to the central display and pulled up classified files. 30 years ago, when we made first contact with the galactic community, our intelligence services began a study. We wanted to understand how the tribunal maintained power. What we found was a pattern of suppression that spans thousands of years. We also found something else. Weaknesses. The display showed analysis reports, strategic assessments, and probability models. The tribunal hasn't fought a real war in over 10,000 years. Their military is designed for intimidation and ceremonial purposes, not actual combat. Their member species are comfortable, risk-averse, and dependent on automated systems. They follow ancient doctrines and protocols. And humanity, Stone continued, his voice growing stronger. We've been fighting wars since we learned to pick up rocks. We innovate under pressure. We take risks that other species consider insane. And for the last 30 years, we've been preparing for exactly this scenario. Morrison leaned forward. You've been preparing for war with the tribunal? Not war, Stone corrected. Survival. We've built hidden defenses throughout human space. We've developed technologies specifically designed to counter their advantages. We've created contingency plans for every possible scenario. We hoped we'd never need them, but we're not defenseless. The chamber erupted in debate. Some called Stone's preparations warmongering. Others praised his foresight. The argument raged for hours. Finally, as Earth's night fell outside the headquarters windows, President Martinez called for a vote. The question was simple but carried enormous weight. Would humanity accept the Galactic Tribunal's terms? The vote was recorded in silence. When the results appeared, they were decisive. 89% voted to refuse. Martinez stood before the assembly. Then it's decided. Humanity will not surrender its freedom. We will send our response to the tribunal and prepare for whatever comes next. General Stone, activate all defensive protocols. Ambassador Morrison, draft our reply. Make it clear, make it respectful, but make it unmistakable. We will not submit. The response. Sent 5 days later, with 25 days remaining in the tribunal's deadline, Morrison transmitted humanity's response. It was broadcast on all galactic frequencies, ensuring every species in known space would hear it. To the Galactic Tribunal, the message began. Humanity has carefully considered your terms. We understand your concerns about our rapid development and military preparedness. We appreciate the stability you have maintained across the galaxy for thousands of years. However, we cannot accept terms that would end our sovereignty and freedom. We are willing to discuss cooperation, mutual defense agreements, and peaceful coexistence, but we will not accept subjugation. Humanity will remain free. We hope the Tribunal will reconsider and work with us to find a path forward that respects the rights of all species. We await your response. The message was delivered directly to the assembly station. Supreme Arbiter Kelthon received it in his private chambers. For several long moments, he simply stared at the transmission, unable to process what he was reading. They refused, he said to his advisors, his crystalline form flickering with colors that indicated shock and anger. In 50,000 years, no species has ever refused us. Perhaps we should attempt further negotiations, one advisor suggested carefully. No, Kelthon said firmly. If we show weakness now, if we allow this defiance to stand, every young species in the galaxy will think they can challenge us. Our entire order will collapse. We must make an example of humanity, a clear, undeniable example. He activated the communication system that connected him to all Tribunal members. Convene the War Council. It is time to show the galaxy why the Tribunal's word is law. In human space, alarms began to sound in every defense installation. Sensors detected massive energy signatures building at the assembly station. The Tribunal was preparing its response, and it was coming soon. The countdown to war had begun, and humanity stood ready to prove that freedom was worth any price. The response. The gathering storm. Supreme Arbiter Kelthon stood in the Tribunal's War Council chamber, a place that had not been used in over 8,000 years. Around him, holographic projections of the other 11 Tribunal members materialized, each showing varying degrees of concern and anticipation. The humans have made their choice, Kelthon announced, his crystalline form pulsing with deep red hues. They have rejected our guidance and defied our authority. For the stability of the galactic order, we must respond with overwhelming force. Commander Threxus of the Corvani Empire was the first to speak. I have already begun assembling an enforcement fleet. 400 warships from 6 different Tribunal species. It is the largest force we have gathered in millennia. Surely the humans will reconsider when they see what approaches. The Sindari representative's light patterns flickered with uncertainty. 400 warships seems excessive for a species that has existed in space for only 30 years. Perhaps a smaller show of force would suffice. No, Kelthon responded firmly. We need to send a message not just to humanity, but to every young species watching this situation. The message must be absolute and undeniable. The Tribunal's authority cannot be questioned. Admiral Vorath, commander of the Tribunal's combined forces, appeared in the chamber. He was a Zenthari, a species that resembled massive armored creatures with multiple limbs and sensor arrays covering their bodies. His species had served as the Tribunal's military arm for over 20,000 years. Supreme Arbiter, Vorath reported, the enforcement fleet is ready. I have selected our most impressive vessels. The sight of them alone should convince the humans to surrender. We will proceed to their home system and enforce compliance. What level of force are you authorized to use? Asked another Tribunal member. Minimal, Vorath replied confidently. We will destroy some military installations as demonstration, perhaps disable a few of their warships. Once they understand the futility of resistance, they will accept our terms. No species has ever required more than a demonstration. Kelthon nodded slowly. Proceed, Admiral. Show humanity the cost of defiance, but preserve their homeworld and major colonies. We are not executioners. We are teachers reminding a young species of their place in the cosmic order. The fleet arrives. The Tribunal enforcement fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the New Haven system, one of humanity's largest colony worlds. 400 warships materialized in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with advanced alloys that reflected the light of the system's star. Each vessel was massive, dwarfing anything humanity had constructed. Admiral Vorath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Doctrine, a ship that had been in service for over 5,000 years. Around him, his crew worked with practiced efficiency, their movements showing the confidence that came from unchallenged superiority. Scan the system, Vorath commanded. Locate all human military assets. Prepare to broadcast our final demand. His sensor officer worked quickly, then looked up with surprise. "Admiral, we are detecting unusual readings. There are far more installations in this system than our intelligence indicated. Many appear to be disguised as civilian structures." Vorath frowned, a gesture that involved his entire armored head shifting position. "Disguised? Interesting. It matters little. Display human forces." The tactical screen lit up, showing New Haven and its surrounding space. The planet had orbital stations, a modest defense fleet of perhaps 30 warships and various satellites and installations. Standard for a human colony world. "Open a channel on all frequencies," Vorath ordered. "Let us give them one final opportunity." The message broadcast across the entire system, reaching every ship, station, and settlement. "Humans of the New Haven system, this is Admiral Vorath of the Galactic Tribunal Enforcement Fleet. You are in violation of Tribunal decree. Your government has refused lawful guidance. We are here to enforce compliance. You have 1 standard hour to power down all military systems and prepare to receive Tribunal oversight administrators. Failure to comply will result in the destruction of your military assets. This is your only warning." On New Haven's surface, in the Colonial Defense Headquarters, Admiral Lisa Park watched the Tribunal fleet on her tactical displays. She was a veteran of humanity's early space conflicts, a woman who had fought pirates, raiders, and hostile alien encounters in the lawless edges of human space. She had been preparing for this moment for 5 years. "All stations, this is Admiral Park," she said calmly into the command channel. "Execute Protocol Defiant. All assets are weapons-free. Show them what humanity really is." The hidden arsenal. Throughout the New Haven system, things that had seemed ordinary suddenly revealed their true nature. Asteroid mining facilities that had operated for years began rotating massive structures toward the Tribunal fleet. What had appeared to be simple ore processors were actually disguised weapons platforms, built into the asteroids themselves. Orbital stations around New Haven that served as civilian transport hubs suddenly deployed armored plating and weapon systems. Thousands of satellites adjusted their positions, their commercial casings falling away to reveal sophisticated targeting arrays and missile pods. Even more surprising, the gas giant in the outer system showed activity. Structures that had been positioned as atmospheric processing facilities began launching what appeared to be small craft. Hundreds of them, moving with purpose toward the Tribunal fleet. Admiral Vorath noticed the activity but remained unconcerned. "They are activating their primitive defenses. Predictable. Communications transmit our response." A human face appeared on his screen. Admiral Park wore a dark blue uniform with silver insignia. Her expression was calm, almost serene. "Admiral Vorath," she said clearly. "I am Admiral Lisa Park, Commander of New Haven Defense Forces. You have entered our system with hostile intent and threatened our people. This is your only warning. Leave now, or face the consequences." Vorath made a sound that was the Zenthari equivalent of laughter. "You dare to threaten us, young species? You face 400 warships crewed by civilizations that mastered space warfare before your ancestors learned to make fire. Stand down now and accept Tribunal authority, or watch your precious installations burn." Park's expression did not change. "You were warned, Admiral." The transmission ended. Vorath turned to his weapons officer. "Target that orbital station above their primary city. Fire 1 shot. Show them what happens when the Tribunal is defied." "Yes, Admiral." Firing. A beam of concentrated energy, powerful enough to vaporize a mountain, lanced out from the Eternal Doctrine toward New Haven. It was a demonstration shot, calculated to destroy a military installation without excessive civilian casualties, a reminder of the Tribunal's power. The beam struck a shield that suddenly flared into existence around the station. The energy dispersed harmlessly across its surface, dissipating into space like water hitting stone. Vorath's confident expression faltered. "Their shields are stronger than anticipated, no matter. Increase power to maximum and—" He never finished the sentence. The counterattack, the asteroid field, exploded into motion. Hundreds of objects that had appeared to be simple rocks suddenly accelerated toward the Tribunal fleet at velocities that made Vorath's sensors scream warnings. They were not missiles. They were solid masses of iron and nickel, accelerated to significant fractions of light speed by massive electromagnetic rail systems hidden throughout the belt. "Evasive action," Vorath commanded, but the projectiles were already too close. The Tribunal ships, designed to deflect energy weapons with powerful shields, provided almost no protection against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The kinetic energy was too great, the impact too sudden. The first projectile struck a Corvani destroyer amidships. The ship simply ceased to exist, transformed into an expanding cloud of debris and plasma. The second and third projectiles found targets within seconds. More ships exploded, their ancient hulls unable to withstand forces they were never designed to counter. "Return fire," Vorath shouted, trying to regain control. "All ships, target those weapon platforms." The Tribunal fleet unleashed its arsenal. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes filled the space between worlds, reaching toward the human installations. But the platforms were small, scattered, and constantly moving. For every one the Tribunal destroyed, 2 more revealed themselves from hiding. Then the swarm arrived. The objects launching from the gas giant reached the Tribunal fleet, and Vorath finally understood what he was facing. They were not piloted craft. They were drones, thousands of them, each one small enough to evade point defense but large enough to carry significant payloads. "Those are just primitive drones," his tactical officer reported, trying to sound confident. "Our shields will—" The drones did not attack the ships directly. Instead, they detonated in carefully coordinated patterns around the Tribunal vessels, releasing clouds of small objects. Ball bearings, fragments of metal, debris, millions upon millions of tiny pieces that expanded rapidly into vast fields of deadly shrapnel. The Tribunal ships flew directly into these clouds at high speed. The individual impacts were tiny, but there were so many. Shields designed to deflect large energy attacks were overwhelmed by millions of small kinetic impacts. Hull plating was stripped away. Sensor arrays were destroyed. Propulsion systems failed. Ships began spinning out of control, their crews desperately trying to restore order. Some collided with each other in the chaos. Others lost life support and became tombs drifting in the void. "All ships, break formation," Vorath commanded. "Scatter and regroup at designated coordinates." But as his fleet tried to retreat, more human weapons revealed themselves. From the moons of New Haven, massive structures began firing, not energy weapons but solid projectiles launched by what appeared to be magnetic acceleration systems of enormous scale. Each projectile was the size of a building, traveling at velocities that made them nearly impossible to intercept. One struck the Eternal Doctrine's escort carrier. The impact tore through the vessel from bow to stern, splitting it in half. Both pieces tumbled away, atmosphere and debris streaming from the wounds. The human fleet then, from positions throughout the system where they had hidden using stealth technology, the Tribunal did not know humans possessed. The human warships appeared. They were not the 30 ships that initial scans had detected. Those had been decoys, empty hulls broadcasting false signatures. The real human fleet numbered over 200 vessels, and they emerged from their hiding spots with perfect coordination. Admiral Park commanded the fleet from her flagship, the UHMS Indomitable. Unlike the massive, ornate Tribunal vessels, human ships were compact, angular, and built purely for war. They sacrificed comfort and ceremony for speed, maneuverability, and firepower. "All ships," Park transmitted, "engage at will. Target priority, command vessels and carriers. Show them what 3 decades of preparation looks like." The human ships moved with a speed and agility that shocked the Tribunal forces. They used the system's gravity wells, planets and moons for tactical advantage, appearing and disappearing with jumps that strained the limits of their drives but gave them impossible positioning. Human weapons were different from anything the Tribunal had encountered. Quantum disruption torpedoes that phased through shields before detonating inside ships. Electromagnetic pulse missiles that fried advanced Tribunal computer systems. Relativistic kill vehicles that were simply solid masses accelerated to a percentage of light speed. Unstoppable and devastating. But perhaps most surprising was how the human ships fought. Tribunal doctrine was based on formation integrity, coordinated volleys, and adherence to established tactical protocols developed over thousands of years. Human ships fought like a pack of predators, constantly moving, exploiting every weakness, taking risks that seemed insane but paid off. A group of human frigates engaged a Tribunal heavy cruiser. Instead of attempting to match its firepower, they swarmed it, attacking from multiple angles simultaneously. While it focused its weapons on one target, others slipped inside its defensive perimeter and struck vulnerable points. Within minutes, the cruiser was disabled, its crew evacuating in escape pods. Admiral Vorath watched his fleet being torn apart and felt something he had not experienced in his 1,000 years of service. Fear. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They are primitives. They should not have this technology, these tactics." His second officer, one of the few remaining calm voices on the bridge, provided an answer. "Admiral, I believe we have made a critical error. We assumed humanity was like other young species. But they are not. They have been preparing for this since they entered galactic space. Everything they showed us was what they wanted us to see. This is what they kept hidden." Another explosion rocked the eternal doctrine as human weapons found their mark. Vorath looked at his tactical display and saw the truth. His 400 ships were being destroyed by a force less than half their size. The humans were winning. The turning point on New Haven's surface. Colonists watched the battle unfold on screens throughout the cities. They saw their defenders, their neighbors who served in the fleet, fighting against an enemy that had come to enslave them. They saw human ingenuity and determination matching ancient power. In orbit, Admiral Park coordinated the battle with cold precision. Third Fleet pushed their left flank. First Fleet prevent their retreat vector. Second Fleet continue targeting command vessels. We need to break their will, not just their ships. A tribunal battleship, one of the largest vessels in the enforcement fleet, attempted to rally the remaining forces. It was a Valorian crystal ship, nearly indestructible under normal circumstances. Park watched it form the core of a defensive formation. "All available ships," she commanded, "concentrated fire on that battleship. I want every quantum torpedo we have on that target. Fire on my mark." 20 human ships aligned their weapons. 50 torpedoes launched simultaneously, phasing through space itself to appear inside the battleship's shields. They detonated in a coordinated pattern, and even Valorian crystal could not withstand that much quantum disruption at once. The battleship came apart, its fragments glowing with internal fires. The destruction of the battleship broke something in the tribunal fleet. Ships began retreating without orders, fleeing toward the edge of the system where they could engage their hyperspace drives. Admiral Vorath, his flagship heavily damaged, made the hardest decision of his long career. "All ships, retreat. Fall back to designated rally point. We cannot win here." The remaining tribunal vessels, less than half of the original 400, fled the New Haven system in disorder. Human ships pursued them to the edge but did not follow into hyperspace. They had made their point. The aftermath, as the last tribunal ship vanished, New Haven erupted in celebration. Cities that had been preparing for bombardment instead rejoiced in victory. The impossible had happened. Humanity had faced the tribunal's might and won. Admiral Park remained on her bridge, exhausted but alert. Around her, her crew worked to assess damages and coordinate rescue operations for damaged ships. They had won, but the cost had been significant. 15 human ships destroyed, another 30 damaged. "Over 3,000 casualties, Admiral," her communications officer called. "We're receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. Dozens of species, many of them young civilizations under tribunal oversight. They all want to know the same thing. How did we do it?" Park allowed herself a small smile. "Tell them the truth. We did it by refusing to accept that anyone else could dictate our future. We did it by preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. And we did it by remembering that freedom is always worth fighting for." She opened a channel that would broadcast across all human space. "This is Admiral Lisa Park to all human forces and civilian populations. Today we faced the test we always knew was coming. The Galactic Tribunal came to force us into submission, to take away our freedom and our future. They believed we would surrender because we are young, because we are small compared to their ancient empires. They were wrong. Today humanity proved that we will never accept chains, no matter who offers them. We showed the galaxy that determination, innovation, and the human spirit are worth more than ancient authority or overwhelming numbers. This victory belongs to every person who believed we deserved to be free, to every engineer who built our defenses, every scientist who developed our weapons, every soldier who stood ready to fight, and every civilian who supported them. But this is not the end. The tribunal will not accept this defeat easily. We must remain vigilant, remain strong, and remain united. We must also reach out to other species who yearn for freedom as we do. Together we can build a new galactic order, one based on mutual respect rather than domination. Humanity has spoken. We are free and we will remain free. To all who hear this message, if you seek freedom, you are not alone. Stand with us and together we will change the galaxy. The galactic response. The transmission reached every corner of known space. On the assembly station, Supreme Arbiter Kelthan listened in his chambers, his crystalline form flickering with colors that indicated shock, rage, and something he had not felt in millennia, uncertainty. Around the galaxy, other young species heard Park's message. Species that had accepted tribunal oversight generations ago began to question whether submission had been necessary. Species approaching the threshold that triggered tribunal intervention started making different preparations. On their homeworlds, the elder races of the tribunal gathered in emergency sessions. For 50,000 years, their authority had been absolute. Now, for the first time, it had been challenged successfully. The implications were staggering. In human space, defensive preparations intensified. Earth's orbital defenses were reinforced. Every colony activated hidden weapons systems and called up reserve forces. Humanity knew this was not over. The tribunal would respond, perhaps with even greater force. But humanity also knew something else. They were not alone anymore. Messages began arriving from other species. Some offered quiet support. Others asked for information about human weapons and tactics. A few even suggested forming an alliance of free species. The galaxy was changing. The old order based on the tribunal's ancient authority was cracking. In its place, something new was emerging. Something built on the principle that every species had the right to determine their own destiny. The future awaits. 3 days after the Battle of New Haven, Ambassador David Morrison stood before the United Earth Council once more. The chamber was filled with representatives celebrating their victory, but Morrison's expression was serious. "We won a battle," he said, silencing the room, "but the war is just beginning. The tribunal will not accept this defeat. They cannot afford to. If they do, their entire system of control collapses. They will come again, probably with everything they have." President Martinez nodded. "Then we must be ready. General Stone, what is our military status?" Stone stood, his uniform crisp despite 3 sleepless days. "Every human world is now on full alert. We are accelerating production of our most effective weapons. We are also analyzing the battle data to improve our tactics. The tribunal fleet fought according to ancient doctrines. If they adapt, future battles will be harder." "What about allies?" Martinez asked Morrison. "We have received hundreds of inquiries from other species. Some are curious, some are supportive, and a few are openly ready to join us. I recommend we carefully vet potential allies and build a coalition. The tribunal rules through isolation and division. We can counter that with unity and mutual support." Martinez looked around the chamber at the representatives of humanity's government. "Then here is what we will do. We will strengthen our defenses and prepare for the tribunal's next move. We will reach out to species who share our values and build alliances based on respect and freedom. And we will send a message to the tribunal. We are willing to coexist peacefully, but we will never submit to their control. Humanity has proven we can stand against ancient power. Now we must prove we can build something better. A galactic community where all species are equal, where freedom is protected and where might does not make right. This is our mission going forward." The chamber erupted in applause, but Morrison knew the challenges ahead were immense. The tribunal had ruled for 50,000 years. They commanded resources and technology humanity could barely imagine. The path forward would be difficult, dangerous, and costly. But as he looked at the determined faces around him, Morrison felt something he had not felt in weeks. Hope. Humanity had always been at its best when facing impossible odds. They had survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and the hostile vacuum of space itself. They had reached for the stars despite every obstacle.